Generals, the Empire's fate is at stake. The northern legions are ready, Caesar. But the eastern passes are vulnerable, sire. Then we fortify the east and strike from the north.
The empire that shaped our world. More than 2,000 years ago, a small village on the banks of the Tiber River rose to become the most powerful empire the world had ever seen. It conquered nations, built roads that still exist today, created laws that still influence modern countries, and spread a religion that now has over 2 billion followers. But how did a tiny settlement become a superpower? How did it survive for over 1,000 years? And why did it eventually fall? Or did it really fall at all? In this video, we are going on a complete journey through the history of the Roman Empire. From its legendary founding, through the glory of the Republic and the golden age of emperors, to its dramatic collapse in the West and its surprising survival in the East for another 1,000 years. This is not just the story of Rome. This is the story of how the modern world was shaped. So stay with me, because this is the complete history of the Roman Empire, explained. Chapter 1, The Birth of Rome. Legend and Kingdom. According to ancient legend, Rome was founded in the year 753 BC by twin brothers named Romulus and Remus. The story says they were the sons of the god Mars and a princess named Rhea Silvia. As babies, they were left to die by a river, but a she-wolf found them and nursed them. Later, a shepherd raised the boys. When they grew up, they decided to build a city. But the brothers fought, and Romulus killed Remus. Romulus then became the first king of Rome and named the city after himself. Of course, this is a legend, but it tells us something important about how Romans saw themselves, as a people born from struggle, strength, and destiny. For the next 250 years, Rome was ruled by kings. There were 7 kings in total. The last king, Tarquin the Proud, was a tyrant. In 509 BC, the Roman people rose up and threw him out. They decided they would never again be ruled by a king. Instead, they created a new system of government, a republic. This was a revolutionary idea at the time. Power would not belong to one man, but to the people, at least in theory. Chapter 2. The Roman Republic. Power to the people. In the Roman Republic, the highest leaders were called consuls. 2 consuls were elected every year, so that no single person could become too powerful. There was also the Senate, a council of wealthy and experienced men who advised the consuls and controlled the money. But not everyone had equal rights. At first, only the rich noble families, called patricians, held real power. The common people, called plebeians, had very few rights. Over time, the plebeians fought for more rights and eventually won the ability to pass laws and even become consuls. Rome was growing stronger. The Roman army was well organized and disciplined. Rome slowly conquered all of Italy. By the year 264 BC, Rome was the dominant power on the Italian peninsula. But a new and dangerous enemy was waiting across the sea. Chapter 3, The Punic Wars, Rome's deadliest enemy. That enemy was Carthage, a powerful trading city in North Africa. Between 264 BC and 146 BC, Rome and Carthage fought 3 brutal wars known as the Punic Wars. In the First Punic War, Rome built a navy from scratch and defeated Carthage at sea. But the Second Punic War was much more dangerous. A brilliant Carthaginian general named Hannibal marched his army, including war elephants, across the Alps into Italy. He won devastating victories against Rome, including the Battle of Cannae, where he surrounded and destroyed a much larger Roman army. For years, Hannibal terrorized Italy, but Rome refused to surrender. A young Roman general named Scipio Africanus eventually took the war to Africa and defeated Hannibal at the Battle of Zama in 202 BC. The Third Punic War ended in total destruction. In 146 BC, Roman soldiers burned Carthage to the ground and sold its people into slavery. Rome was now the undisputed master of the Western Mediterranean. Chapter 4, Julius Caesar and the Death of the Republic. With Carthage gone, Rome kept expanding. But success created new problems. Powerful generals began to rise. They had loyal armies and started to challenge the authority of the Senate. The most famous of these generals was Julius Caesar. He conquered Gaul, modern-day France, and became incredibly popular with the Roman people. The Senate feared his power. When they ordered him to disband his army, Caesar made a fateful decision. In 49 BC, he crossed the Rubicon River into Italy with his army, an act of war against Rome itself. Civil war followed. Caesar won and became dictator for life. But on the 15th of March, 44 BC, the Ides of March, he was assassinated by a group of senators who wanted to restore the Republic. Instead of saving the Republic, Caesar's death led to more chaos. His adopted son, Octavian, eventually defeated his rivals, including Mark Antony and Cleopatra, at the Battle of Actium in 31 BC. In 27 BC, the Senate gave Octavian a new title, Augustus. Rome now had its first emperor. The Republic was over. The Roman Empire had begun. Chapter 5, Augustus, the first emperor and Pax Romana. Augustus was a master politician. He did not call himself king. Romans hated that word. Instead, he called himself princeps, meaning first citizen. In reality, he held almost all the power. He controlled the army, the provinces, and the treasury. But he kept the appearance of the old republic. Augustus brought peace after decades of civil war. This long period of stability became known as the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. It would last for nearly 200 years. He built roads, improved the tax system, created a permanent professional army, and turned Rome into a magnificent city of marble. When Augustus died in 14 AD, he left behind a strong and stable empire. But not all of his successors would be as wise. Chapter 6, Emperors, Tyrants, and the Golden Age. After Augustus came the Julio-Claudian dynasty. Some emperors were capable, like Tiberius and Claudius. Others were infamous. Caligula and Nero became symbols of cruelty and madness. In 69 AD, the year of the four emperors showed how unstable succession could be. Then came the Flavian dynasty, which built the Colosseum. But the greatest period of stability came during the rule of the five good emperors: Nerva, Trajan, Hadrian, Antoninus Pius, and Marcus Aurelius. Under Trajan, the empire reached its largest size. Hadrian built his famous wall in Britain. Marcus Aurelius, a philosopher king, wrote his famous book Meditations while fighting on the frontier. This was the golden age of the Roman Empire. Trade flourished, cities grew, and Roman law and culture spread across 3 continents. Chapter 7, The Crisis of the 3rd Century, Rome's Darkest Hour. But nothing lasts forever. In the year 235 AD, the crisis of the 3rd century began. For the next 50 years, the empire almost collapsed. More than 20 emperors ruled in just 50 years. Most of them were murdered by their own soldiers. The empire faced invasions from Germanic tribes in the north and the powerful Persian Empire in the east. A terrible plague killed millions. The economy collapsed as emperors printed more and more worthless money. Parts of the empire even broke away and formed their own states. Rome was saved by a series of strong soldier emperors, especially Aurelian, who reunited the empire. But it was clear that the old system could no longer survive. Chapter 8, Diocletian and Constantine, a new Rome. In 284 AD, Emperor Diocletian took power. He completely reformed the empire. He divided it into 4 parts, ruled by 4 emperors, a system called the Tetrarchy. He also reorganized the government, the army, and the economy. But he was also famous for one of the most brutal persecutions of Christians in Roman history. Then came Constantine. In 312 AD, before the Battle of Milvian Bridge, Constantine claimed he saw a vision of the Christian cross in the sky. He won the battle and became the sole ruler of the empire. In 313 AD, he issued the Edict of Milan, which gave Christians the freedom to practice their religion. Later, he founded a new capital city in the east. Constantinople, which he called the New Rome Constantine, had transformed the empire forever. Christianity was now on the path to becoming the dominant religion. Chapter 9, The Fall of the Western Roman Empire. After Constantine's death, the empire was permanently divided in 395 AD between East and West. The Western Roman Empire faced increasing pressure from Germanic tribes. In 410 AD, the Visigoths sacked Rome, the first time in 800 years that the city had been captured by a foreign enemy. In 455 AD, the Vandals sacked Rome again. Finally, in 476 AD, a Germanic leader named Odoacer deposed the last Western emperor, a young boy named Romulus Augustulus. For centuries, historians called this the fall of the Roman Empire, but the truth is more complicated. The Western Empire had been weakening for a long time due to economic problems, political instability, overexpansion, and the arrival of large groups of migrants and invaders. The world did not end in 476. It simply changed. Chapter 10. The Byzantine Empire. Rome lives on. While the West fell, the Eastern Roman Empire survived and even thrived, and even thrived, survived and even thrived. Its capital, Constantinople, was one of the greatest and richest cities in the world for centuries. The people there still called themselves Romans. Under Emperor Justinian in the 6th century, they even reconquered parts of Italy and North Africa. Justinian also created a famous legal code that still influences laws today. The Byzantine Empire lasted for another 1,000 years after the fall of Rome in the West. It only finally ended in 1453 when the Ottoman Turks conquered Constantinople. In many ways, the Roman Empire never truly died. It simply evolved. Conclusion and legacy. So what is the legacy of the Roman Empire? It is everywhere. Our legal systems, our languages, our architecture, our roads, our calendar, and even many of our political ideas come from Rome. The idea of a republic, of citizenship, of written law, these are Roman gifts to the world. Christianity, which shaped Western civilization for centuries, spread through the Roman Empire. Rome showed both the heights of human achievement and the dangers of power, corruption, and overreach. The Roman Empire rose from a small village, ruled much of the known world, nearly collapsed, and then lived on in the East for another 1,000 years. Its story is one of the greatest in human history. Thank you for watching this complete history of the Roman Empire. If you enjoyed it, please like, and subscribe for more explained history videos. Until next time, stay curious. Chapter 7. The Crisis of the 3rd Century. Rome's Darkest Hour. After nearly 2 centuries of peace and prosperity, dark clouds gathered over the Roman Empire. In 235 AD, the crisis of the 3rd century began. For the next 50 years, the empire was on the verge of total collapse. More than 20 different emperors ruled during this chaotic period, and most of them were murdered by their own soldiers. The empire faced deadly invasions from Germanic tribes in the north and the powerful Sassanid Persian Empire in the east. A devastating plague swept across the land, killing millions. The economy collapsed as emperors desperately printed more and more worthless money, causing massive inflation. At one point, parts of the empire even broke away. The Gallic Empire in the west and the Palmyrene Empire in the east declared independence. Rome seemed finished. But strong soldier emperors like Aurelian fought back and managed to reunite the empire. The crisis showed that the old system of government could no longer handle the huge empire's problems. Radical changes were needed. Chapter 8. Diocletian and Constantine. Reform and a New Beginning. In 284 AD, a strong leader named Diocletian took control. He introduced massive reforms to save the empire. He divided the empire into 4 parts ruled by 4 emperors, a system called the Tetrarchy. This helped manage the huge territory more effectively. Diocletian also reorganized the army, government, and economy. However, he is also remembered for launching one of the last and most brutal persecutions of Christians. Then came Constantine the Great. In 312 AD, before a decisive battle at the Milvian Bridge, Constantine reportedly saw a vision of the Christian cross in the sky with the words, "In this sign, conquer." He won the battle and soon became the sole ruler. In 313 AD, he issued the Edict of Milan, which ended the persecution of Christians and gave them freedom to worship. Constantine also founded a magnificent new capital in the east on the site of the ancient city of Byzantium. He named it Constantinople, the New Rome. This move shifted the center of power eastward and marked the beginning of a new Christian Roman Empire. Chapter 9. The Division of the Empire and the Fall of the West. After Constantine's death, the empire was permanently split in 395 AD into the Western Roman Empire and the Eastern Roman Empire. The Western Empire faced growing problems. Germanic tribes continued to migrate into Roman territory. Some were allowed to settle as allies, but tensions rose. In 410 AD, the Visigoths under Alaric sacked the city of Rome, the first time in 800 years that the Eternal City had fallen to a foreign enemy. This shocked the entire Roman world. In 455 AD, the Vandals sacked Rome again. The Western Empire grew weaker and weaker. Finally, In 476 AD, a Germanic chieftain named Odoacer deposed the last Western Roman emperor, a young boy named Romulus Augustulus. Many historians mark this date as the traditional end of the Western Roman Empire. But the fall was not sudden. It was the result of long-term problems: economic decline, political instability, overexpansion, and the inability to fully integrate the large numbers of barbarian migrants. Chapter 10: The Byzantine Empire. Rome lives on. While the West fell, the Eastern Roman Empire survived and thrived for another 1,000 years. We now call it the Byzantine Empire, but its people always called themselves Romans. Its capital, Constantinople, became one of the greatest cities in the world, heavily fortified and located at the perfect crossroads of trade. The most famous Byzantine emperor was Justinian, who ruled in the 6th century. He reconquered parts of Italy and North Africa, built the magnificent Hagia Sophia Cathedral, and created a famous law code called the Corpus Juris Civilis, which still influences legal systems today. The Byzantines developed advanced military technology like Greek fire, a terrifying incendiary weapon. They preserved classical Greek and Roman knowledge while blending it with Christian culture. Despite facing Arab invasions, internal religious conflicts, and later the Crusaders, the Byzantine Empire endured until 1453, when the Ottoman Turks finally conquered Constantinople under Sultan Mehmed II. This event marked the end of the Roman imperial tradition that had lasted for nearly 1,500 years. Conclusion and legacy of Rome. So what is the lasting legacy of the Roman Empire? Everywhere we look, Rome's influence remains. Roman law forms the basis of many modern legal systems. Latin, the language of Rome, evolved into French, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, and Romanian. Roman engineering, roads, bridges, aqueducts, and concrete, was far ahead of its time. Many Roman roads are still used today. The idea of a republic with elected officials and checks on power inspired later democracies, including the United States. Christianity spread rapidly across the empire and became a global religion. Roman architecture, art, literature, and philosophy continue to shape Western civilization. The Roman Empire rose from a small village on 7 hills, ruled much of the known world, faced near destruction, and yet its ideas lived on for centuries. Its story teaches us about ambition, resilience, the dangers of power, and the power of legacy. Thank you so much for watching this 2-part series on the complete history of the Roman Empire. If you enjoyed it, please like, comment, and subscribe for more in-depth history explainers. Let me know in the comments, which part of Roman history fascinated you the most? Part 3: The Decline, Survival, and Eternal Legacy of Rome. The Crisis of the 3rd Century, when Rome almost died. By the 3rd century AD, the Roman Empire, which had once seemed unstoppable, was fighting for its very survival. The crisis of the 3rd century began in 235 AD after the assassination of Emperor Severus Alexander. In the next 50 years, Rome saw more than 20 emperors, most of them short-lived and violently removed by their own troops. Foreign enemies attacked from all sides. Germanic tribes crossed the Rhine and Danube rivers. In the east, the aggressive Sassanid Persians captured a Roman emperor, Valerian, and used him as a human footstool. A deadly plague, probably smallpox, swept through the empire, killing millions and weakening the army. The economy collapsed. Emperors kept debasing the currency, leading to runaway inflation. Trade routes became dangerous. Cities shrank. At its worst, the empire actually split into 3 competing states. The Gallic Empire controlled Britain, Gaul, and Spain. The Palmyrene Empire under Queen Zenobia controlled the rich eastern provinces. It looked like the end, but Rome showed its legendary resilience. Emperors like Aurelian and Diocletian fought back, defeated the breakaway states, and began the long process of recovery. Diocletian, Constantine, and the Christian Revolution. Diocletian, who took power in 284 AD, was a tough soldier emperor who completely restructured the empire. He created the Tetrarchy, ruled by 4 emperors, to make governance easier. He strengthened the borders, reformed taxes, and tried to control prices. However, he also started the Great Persecution against Christians, destroying churches and executing believers. Then everything changed with Constantine. In 312 AD, before the Battle of the Milvian Bridge, he had a vision of the Christian symbol Chi Rho and the words, "In this sign you will conquer." He won the battle and soon became the sole ruler. In 313 AD, the Edict of Milan legalized Christianity. Constantine funded churches, called the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD to unify Christian beliefs, and moved the capital to Constantinople in 330 AD. By the end of the 4th century, under Emperor Theodosius, Christianity became the official religion of the empire. The old pagan temples were closed. A new Christian Roman world was born, the division and the fall of the Western Roman Empire. In 395 AD, the empire was permanently divided between two brothers, Arcadius in the east and Honorius in the west. The Western Empire struggled badly. The army relied more and more on barbarian soldiers. Economic problems grew worse. The tax base shrank. In 410 AD, the Visigoths, led by Alaric, sacked Rome itself. The psychological shock was enormous. St. Jerome wrote, "The city which had taken the whole world was itself taken." In 455 AD, the Vandals sacked Rome again. The Huns under Attila also invaded, though they were eventually stopped. Finally, in 476 AD, the Germanic chieftain Odoacer removed the last Western emperor, Romulus Augustulus. This date is traditionally seen as the fall of the Western Roman Empire. But historians today see it as a slow transformation rather than a sudden dramatic collapse. Roman culture, law, and Christianity continued in the new barbarian kingdoms, the Byzantine Empire, Rome's 1,000-year afterlife. Fortunately, the Eastern Roman Empire, what we call the Byzantine Empire, survived and flourished. Its people never stopped calling themselves Romans. Constantinople was almost impregnable, protected by massive walls and its strategic location. It was the richest and most sophisticated city in Europe for centuries. The greatest Byzantine emperor was Justinian, 527-565 AD. He reconquered Italy, North Africa, and parts of Spain. He built the breathtaking Hagia Sophia, one of the greatest buildings ever constructed. Most importantly, he ordered the creation of the Corpus Juris Civilis, a comprehensive code of Roman law that became the foundation of legal systems across Europe. The Byzantines used advanced weapons like Greek fire, a flammable liquid that burned even on water, to defend against Arab fleets. They preserved ancient Greek philosophy, science, and literature when the West had lost much of it. The empire faced many challenges: Arab invasions, iconoclasm controversies, the Crusaders, and later the Ottoman Turks. But it endured until May 29, 1453, when Sultan Mehmed II captured Constantinople. The last emperor, Constantine XI, died defending the city. This event is often seen as the true end of the ancient Roman Empire, the eternal legacy of Rome, why it still matters. Even after the last emperor fell, Rome never really died. Its legacy is all around us. Roman law influences most civil law systems in Europe and Latin America today. Concepts like innocent until proven guilty and legal contracts come from Rome. The Romance languages: Italian, French, Spanish, Portuguese, Romanian, all evolved from Latin. English itself has thousands of Latin words. Roman engineering was extraordinary. Their roads, some of which we still drive on, their aqueducts, bridges, and the use of concrete allowed them to build structures that lasted centuries. The Dome of the Pantheon still stands after 1,900 years. Politically, the idea of a republic, a senate, and balanced government inspired the founding fathers of the United States and many other democracies. Christianity, which became the state religion, spread across the empire and shaped the entire Western world for the next 1,500 years. Roman literature, the works of Virgil, Cicero, Ovid, and Tacitus, continues to be studied. Roman art, sculpture, and architecture inspired the Renaissance and neoclassical buildings around the world. Even our calendar, the names of the months, and many military terms come from Rome. The story of Rome teaches us powerful lessons about the rise and fall of civilizations, the importance of strong institutions, the dangers of corruption and overexpansion, and the power of ideas that can outlive empires. Rome rose from nothing, ruled the known world, faced countless crises, and yet its influence still shapes our modern world. That is why He Roman Empire remains one of the most fascinating stories in human history.